overseas in Europe with the PA in Europe. And so it's my great pleasure to welcome Paul Harrald of Curve, who are sponsoring a PA at Home this afternoon, to have a chat about his business and what excites Paul in the market today. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Marion. Nice to meet you.
You too.
It's also a pleasure to be here.
Good, good. So, Paul, tell us a bit about yourself and your role at Curve, first of all.
So, a bit about myself. Well, for the payments, there's lots of payments people on the call, I know. So there was a time I worked at NatWest Streamline. So there's a name from the past. They're a pretty decent sized merchant acquirer back in the day. But I've been at Curve for 2.5 years, and just prior to joining Curve, I was in the investment world, making private equity investments. And the boring story is that I didn't make an investment in Curve, but Curve was in my portfolio from a previous investor, and I met Shahar. And the more I looked at Curve and the more I looked at its payments technology, the more I wanted to join. And I joined ostensibly to build out a consumer lending business.
And what is it about the Curve offering, Paul, that really drew you? Because there are many card companies, as you've said, and but Curve offers some different features, I believe.
So, I mean, the broad selling point of Curve is this concept that the personal financial world's becoming fragmented because the cost of entry and various other things have been lowered dramatically by technology, by the kinds of modern approaches to software engineering. So we live in this fragmented world, and like most fragmented industries, there's an opportunity to do one of two things. One, be the winner takes all, just be the best at everything. The other one is to consolidate and sit over the top. And it's a very compelling vision. So the analogs being companies like Spotify and others. And I bought into that. I bought into that vision immediately because the personal financial world is very fragmented. But that makes it complicated and difficult to manage. And what we really need is a simple way to manage it that empowers you to choose among the many offerings. So the broad concept of Curve, I think, was really rather beautiful. Curve itself has chosen to begin its mission, which is to simplify and allow consumers to manage their financial world in a single place. It chose the payments world to start. And for those of you that are not aware of how the Curve Paytech works, it's really fascinating because Curve is both an issuer of a debit card in the UK and a merchant at the same time. And this construct exists very rarely. So the way it works is we issue you with a debit card, but there's no underlying bank account. And in the app, you get to choose which of your other payment cards is actually funding the transaction. And that has multiple benefits, which I'm sure other people can talk about another time. But it is rather beautiful the way it works. And there's a similar construct that we've just launched in the US. It happens to be a credit card in the US, but it works in the same way. There's a carousel. And as I was looking at the Curve business model, obviously, as a student of fintech, I was aware of things like buy now, pay later lending and the apparent tremendous success of companies like Affirm and Afterpay and Klarna and others. But the more I looked at Curve, the more I thought there was the possibility to build something really beautiful, something that even in the lending world sat above traditional credit cards and buy now, pay later lending. And that's what we've called Flex. Several other companies, I hasten to add, have used the word Flex. And it really was the possibility. We have other plans with Curve, with our lending products, but it really was the possibility of building Flex that drew me to Curve. And I should really explain how Flex works. Having dished up an appetizer like that, I should follow up with a main course, I think.
Yeah, I think we'll do that because my understanding is that it allows you to, embark upon that buy now, pay later journey, but for purchases that you've already made. So people often change their minds or things happen after they've made a purchase. So tell us more about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I'll try to explain why I find it beautiful. It literally works in the following way: that you're a dedicated Curve customer, as I assume everybody on the call would be at this point. And if you're not, I'm happy to pass on details of how to sign up. But as a Curve customer, you're happily using your Curve debit card in the UK or your credit card in the US, and you could be buying things. You could be buying things in the store. You could be paying for things more generally. And of course, you've chosen which of your underlying cards is funding the transaction. So you now have this transaction history in the app. And for eligible customers, the way Curve Flex works is simply the following. You choose a transaction, and let's use the example of a debit card transaction. You swipe it, and then you tell us you would like to repay your loan, as it will be, over 3, 6, 9, 12 months or something like that. And what we actually do, everything happens along the payments rails. What we actually do is refund the transaction that you made with Curve. Because, of course, all of those transactions have an acquiring side, which is where Curve gets its money from the underlying card issuer, and an issuing side where we send money to merchants. So we refund the live load transaction. We refund the transaction with Curve. From a customer point of view, that has the effect of putting money in their bank account, of course. I mean, from their point of view, the amount of the transactions refunded to their bank account. Same if the underlying funding card were a credit card, we make a refund on the original transaction, and that has the effect of paying down your credit card balance or opening up a little bit of your credit limit. So it does work along payments rails, but this is the attraction for me of the Curve Flex construct. It's not literally true, but it's close to true that it's really any transaction you made and any underlying funding card. You don't need to use Flex for buy now, pay later. You can use Flex for multiple purposes, but it could be. So one use case for Curve Flex is, hey, I'm going to buy something that's quite expensive. I'd rather have a bit more money in my bank account over the next 6 months than pay for it up front. That has, benefits of flexibility and ability to meet unexpected demands and unexpected opportunities. Whatever the motivation, you can split the purchase over time, which was, of course, the original intent of buy now, pay later style lending, was to soften the blow of an initial large white goods purchase, for example. I used to be a dedicated GE employee and used to look after their store card portfolio. And as you know, GE was making lots of consumer electronics and consumer white goods, and it was watching other companies finance the transaction. It thought, well, maybe we can finance the transaction. So you can use Flex to do that. You can buy something and soften the blow of the initial outlay in classic BNPL style. But there are other uses. Maybe you have a need for cash. Maybe you just think there might be some uncertainties coming up. Maybe you need to MOT fix the car or something like that. Well, for as long as you're an eligible customer with a credit, if you've got debit card transactions, it has the effect of putting cash in your bank account. So it's a second, quite distinct, I think, use case. There's a third use case, which is maybe you're revolving on your credit card and maybe you prefer to commit to paying it off. You want to tie yourself to the mast and say, actually, I want to pay this off over 6 months. I really do want to pay down my credit card balance. Well, again, swiping credit card transactions has the same effect as refinancing with a short-term loan. So we've got these three use cases all in a single user experience. And of course, the reason Curve likes this is Curve Flex is of the nature of an option to swipe a transaction. So all the more reason to use your Curve card, because you're building up this transaction history that has all the benefits of Curve, but also should you in the future like to take advantage of the Flex proposition, you can. So that was quite a long answer, but that it's quite a, it's a relatively subtle loan construct, but that's why we like it. Multiple use cases all along the payments rails in Europe.
Yeah, and from what you've just told us, Paul, it allows customers and consumers to really manage their cash flow effectively with one card. Yeah.
I think, if I think about the benefits of personal credit, all of them revolve around the possibility of bringing money from the future to the present. If you see what I mean, it allows you to smooth cash flows. I think, there's a certain amount of credit that allows you to consume things sooner rather than later. That's one use case, but there's another one which smooths the variability of your cash flow, and Flex really talks to that.
Yeah, and as we're all facing into what we think is going to be one of the worst sort of cost of living crises that we've ever lived through. So it seems to me that having Flex or Curve Flex is going to be something that people should be looking at in terms of managing that. And I had one more. We've got just a few minutes left, Paul. And I was doing my research on you on LinkedIn, and I see that you've written pieces on responsible lending. And I think having purpose and being responsible lenders and is at the heart of everything we do in the payments industry. But you also talked a bit about sort of human psychology and behaviours. And I would just like if you could just spend the last few minutes telling us a bit more about what you had in mind on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, the origins of all of these discussions are conversations between myself and another founder of New Day, Richard Langstaff, who was the real founder of New Day in essence. And he and I founded the company New Day. And after the exit, Richard asked me what had we discovered about consumer lending, and the answer was that there are tremendous failings in credit scoring, because they fail to pick up enduring characteristics of people. And I give you the one example of conscientiousness. Generally speaking, conscientious people are pretty good from a lending point of view. And if a conscientious person defaults on a loan, any assessment of their creditworthiness should be largely unimpacted. And I think recent events have showed us that plenty of people have defaulted on loans or would have defaulted on loans through no fault of their own, but they remain good credits. So the more I thought about that, the more I thought, now there is work done on the interface between human psychology and credit. Credo Lab, I mean, there are companies that work very well in this space. But there are two concepts that I find interesting. One is, can I equip our customers with mechanisms to prevent them taking out loans they really don't want to? So I might think they can afford it, but they may not. And the analog, and it's incumbent on fintech lenders to remember something that's not true of many fintech business models. And that something is, it's not always true that more of our product is good for our customers. It is not always true that more borrowing is good for our customers. When you realize that, you realize that what you really want to do is equip customers with the ability to control their own habits. Now, some customers will tell us they really would like us to prevent them from borrowing because in some senses, it's getting out of control from their point of view. They really do borrow too much. And what I'm trying to do with CurveFlex, and I mean in a proportionate way, is not to blur the distinction between paying for something and borrowing money. I really want our customers to realize, when necessary, that they are borrowing, not just paying for something. So that's what got me interested in psychology, which is what kinds of tools can I equip my borrowers with so that they can borrow responsibly. I will do everything in my power to lend responsibly. You know, we are meticulous about affordability analysis. It is forward-looking for the reason you suggested earlier, Marion, which we are in an unprecedented cost of living crisis, so I have to build that into my affordability calculations. But the reason we studied psychology so much is because we thought we might be able to detect behaviors, not where we prevent people taking out credit, because to do that as a surprise is a very unwarranted act, in my opinion, but to equip our customers with the mechanism to prevent them making mistakes from their point of view. It's still very much in research stage. There are obvious analogs in the gambling industry and elsewhere, but it will eventually manifest itself in our app. So that's our attempt to be responsible. It's not to tell people what to do. You know, we will do our best to lend responsibly, but it's to equip people with the means of borrowing responsibly.
Interesting. Yeah, this is all, it just shows you how far the payments industry has come on in terms of thinking about the customer, the impact on the customer, and the duty that we have as providers in the industry to do the right thing. So I think we're almost out of time, Paul, but really great to hear what Curve are doing. You clearly are passionate about the creation of products that you're positioning, and sort of, we talk about right sizing, but this is about right timing, because things are changing as we sit here. And I think on behalf of the Payments Association, I just want to thank Curve enormously for being innovative, doing the right thing, and for sponsoring this session this afternoon. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Marion. Thanks for the opportunity.